Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Well, good evening, everybody. We will call this Tuesday, June 11th, 2019 City Council meeting to order. It is my honor to sit in this evening for the mayor, who is out of town. We'll do our best to make our way through this tonight, so don't be afraid to giggle at the new guy. I'll ask the clerk to read the roll, please.
Councilmember Starr.
Here.
Staley. Brecky. Here. Erickson. Here. Kiley.
Here.
Neitzer.
Here.
Selberg.
Here.
Sale.
Here.
Let's turn it off.
Thank you. Tonight we welcome Tom Rooney with the Direct Line Prayer Center to give the invocation. We will then stay standing for the pledge afterwards. Welcome, Tom.
Father, we thank you for your goodness and your mercy. We thank you for the many blessings that we have in this nation and certainly in this city. Lord, even as we've seen the events of recent days, we ask you for your hand of protection, your wisdom, your counsel, and your might, God, as we deal with acts of violence that seem strange in our city. We pray, God, that you would have mercy upon us, and Lord, we ask you for the protection of our citizenry. We pray also, God, for your protection to be upon the law enforcement officers and those that are in public service. God, we pray your blessing upon the council tonight. We ask you, Lord, to impart your wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to them, that they might establish the house of God in this city. Lord, that they might establish your ways here. And Father, we pray for good and godly leadership in this city. And we just pray, God, that you would have your hand upon us now. We put our hope and our trust in you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we will go to the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Kiley.
Motion by Erickson, seconded by Kiley. Is there any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr.
Yes.
Staley.
Yes.
Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Okay. On to the regular agenda.
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Sale.
Mr. Chair.
Councilor Neitzer.
I'm going to make a motion to amend the regular agenda by moving item 19 before item 15 and after item 14.
Second, Erickson.
Okay, we have a motion to amend by Councilor Neitzer, seconded by Erickson. Any discussion? If there's no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr.
Yes.
Staley. Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson. Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes,
Sale.
Yes.
that has passed 8-0. Now a roll call vote on the motion to approve as amended.
Councilmember Starr.
Yes.
Staley. Brecky.
Yes.
Erickson.
Yes.
Kiley.
Yes.
Neitzer.
Yes.
Selberg.
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
Did I need to correct that? Was it 7-0 last time and 7-0 there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're at the public input portion of tonight's agenda. As a reminder, input during this portion will last no more than 3 minutes per person and in total last no more than 30 minutes. During general public input, the public is welcome to speak on any topic that does not appear later on the agenda. For regular agenda items following general public input, comments are limited to 3 minutes unless the item is being presented for final adoption in which case public input is limited to 5 minutes. For all regular agenda items, comments are limited to the agenda item under consideration only. At this time, I'd like to invite members of the public forward for general public input. Please note that the time is 7:04. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Tom Lawrence. I represent SDvoice.org. We're here to speak to you, the city of Sioux Falls, about our efforts to place 2 ballot questions on the 2020 ballot in South Dakota to restore our rights to place issues on the ballot. It's been severely curtailed by the legislature in the last 2 sessions. That's why we're sponsoring an initiative and a referendum to overturn these and restore the rights we've had since the 1890s. These laws were good enough in South Dakota for 120 years. They've been abated and curtailed in the last 2 years. Among the laws, if it goes into effect, you'd have to be approved to circulate a petition. You have to wear a government-issued badge. You have to track, the government can track who you are, your information. As of right now, I'm signing up petitioners. We have more than 100 petitioners across the state gathering signatures to get on the ballot. They have to give us their name, their phone number, their email address. I spoke to some 80-year-old women that signed up for us last week. They believe in this. They're a little concerned about releasing their public information, but they still want to do this because they realize how important it is to restore our rights, have access to the ballot. What we're asking tonight is from you as individuals, as a panel, as citizens, and as South Dakotans to join with us in this, to help us collect the signatures which we need to have by June 27th, just 2 weeks from now, to put this on the ballot before and let the voters decide. This is a right we've had since the earliest days of statehood. It's been stripped from us. It's been severely curtailed, and we feel that the right thing to do, the South Dakota thing to do, is to restore our rights. Again, if you want to sign up, there's petitioners across the state. We'll be at several events in town the next 2 weeks. Please go to SDvoice.org to sign up, to become a petitioner, to join our cause. We ask you all to join with us. This is not a partisan issue. I'm an independent. We have Democrats, Republicans on all sides join with us. This is just a simple matter of South Dakota rights being curtailed that we want restored. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Scott Harrisman, Sioux Falls. I was watching the informational earlier today, and I found it interesting that it seems that the council budget is just kind of floats in the air, and whenever something comes up that needs to be spent money on, they can just grab the money and do it. So I started thinking about this, and I thought, you know, when a couple of the counselors and some members of the audit committee had asked to do to hire a recruiter to look for better candidates for the internal auditor, they were ignored. I was thinking to myself, why? You can just go ask for the money and get it to do it. Seems kind of strange, but I guess you only have money for the important things, like donuts. Anyway, the main reason I'm up here to talk is to talk about the fact that the city of Sioux Falls has been collecting data and monitoring citizens who are trying to just get information. It used to be you could go to the city of Sioux Falls website, you could get documents, you just had to go there, find the right page and get it. You could do a Google search, whatever. The other day I tried to find a document, and then there was a screenshot passed on to me of the document that used to be up on the city website. It's not there anymore. It requires you to go to a GIS site, requires you to have a login. It requires you to go through this thing. Same thing with the survey. There's no reason having a survey. They need to know if you're a registered voter. They don't need to know your age. They don't need to know your gender. This is collecting data, and we're using taxpayer money to collect data on citizens, and that is wrong. I know what that data is going to be used for. It's going to be used for the next election, and some certain candidates will be able to use that data to know who they need to target. That is not the wise use of taxpayer money. And in fact, I almost question if it's bordering on illegal. The public owns the government. We should not have to have a login and be tracked and traced when we ask for certain information from our government. If I go to the city website and want to download a document, I shouldn't have to have a login. You shouldn't have to know my name. You shouldn't have to know my email. I shouldn't even have to live in Sioux Falls to do that. This is atrocious. And the first part I'm mad about is the fact that you're using my tax dollars to do this. And number two, it shouldn't be done anyway. This is what fascist regimes do, not in a democracy. The information that we want to get is our information. We should not have to have a login to do it, and we should not have to be paying for these different surveys and different things the way we're going about it. It's wrong. And I'm hoping that someone on the city council finally raises their hands and tells the Office of Information and Technology, no more logins to get information. Put the information up on that website and let us download it when we want to, how we want to, and without a login. It's wrong. It's just flat against what we believe in a democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else tonight? Welcome.
Dwayne Skipper, with the 2020 city budget planning in process. Here are some examples of how the city is spending its revenue in 2019, a budget that increased 9% from 2018. The 2019 Sioux Falls Stadium budget is up 55% from $571,000 to $885,000. The Sioux Falls Library's capital fund outlay is up 27% or $238,000. Library total expenses up 7.4% and library equipment purchases up 116% or $148,000. The park's general fund contribution is up 11.3% or $1.75 million. The mayor's department budget is up 64%, and total wages are up 81% from $296,000 to $535,000, all in 1 year. Insurance expense is up significantly over all departments. As examples, water department per employee average insurance cost is $14,700 annually. And the water reclamation insurance expense per employee is $13,900 annually. Average annual wages with fringe benefits per water department employee is $98,000, and for water reclamation, it is $105,000. In 2014, the City Human Resources Department claimed that out-of-pocket insurance for city employees had not increased for 10 years. 5 years later, are city employees paying a fair share of those increases? The state recently increased the amount state employees pay for their insurance. And I say, welcome to the world of the average citizen and what they endure with federally mandated policies that have increased insurance costs year after year. The city council has the authority to hold city department spending in check. Please keep at the forefront of your city budget approval process that city residents need relief from water treatment bill increases that relentlessly have occurred over the last 13 years.
Thank you. Anybody else tonight? Next item, please.
Item 19, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, setting the franchise fee, community grant, and capital grant collected from all franchise cable operators and open video system operators.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself on this item.
Okay. Thank you, Counselor. Welcome, Director Reisdorfer.
Thank you, Council. We talked about this at the informational 3 weeks ago and the first reading last week. Up tonight is first the resolution to set the franchise fee. Following this, if approved, you'd be looking to approve the ordinance, the second reading of the ordinance for the cable contract. Quickly through some of these slides you've seen, for those that haven't seen them before, this is a 10-year contract proposal that was originally signed in 2009, expires this December 31st. Currently, our franchise fee is 2.5%. That's a fee that's passed on to customers currently from Midco. Currently, 2% of that goes to the general fund, 1/4% goes to the school district, and 1/4% goes to CityLink. Just a refresher on the definition of a franchise fee, it's basically a contract, not imposed, both parties benefit. This was agreed upon by Midco. It's governed by the FCC, and state law regulates the cable operators. Franchise fees are the rent that a cable provider pays for the use of our right-of-way. Maximum allowed by law is 5, along with the 1% community capital grant, actually. This is a chart of the last 10 years of revenue that Midco has provided to the city. You'll notice a pretty steady uptick until about 3 years ago when it started to level off. In these last 3 years, based on projection for this year, we're seeing a decline. We think a lot of that is due to the streaming nature of people's user experiences. Cord cutters is another common name for that. When we saw that from our office, as this contract came up, we took a look at the franchise fee and we started asking a couple questions of why it was at 2.5%, including what are our neighboring similar towns at, and this is the chart that a lot of people have seen. 17 out of the 20 cities are at the maximum of 5%. Sioux Falls is the lowest at 2.5%. So after seeing this information, we just started looking at this, and the proposal from the administration is for a 10-year contract with Midco, effective January 1st, and we are proposing that the franchise fee is increased to 5%, and we add the 1% capital grant into the contract. If approved, our proposed breakdown of this, we would elect to see 4.5% go to the general and sales tax fund, increase the school district's portion from 0.25% to 0.5%, and increase and use the 1% capital grant exclusively for operations of the CityLink channel. This is a new slide for you. This is the revenue impact based on the proposed change. The column on the left in the red, currently we're bringing, these are estimates, which are just all based on projections. We're bringing in around $1 million a year at the current revenue of 2.5%. The percentages break down where CityLink's contribution is about 90,000, school districts about 90,000, and the general fund gets the rest at 820,000. Projections based on the 5 plus 1% proposal would bring in about 2.3 million. The 1% equals 360,000 to CityLink and 180,000 to school district, with the remaining left for the general fund. The net amount to the general fund, this is a piece that's important, the CityLink going from 90,000 to 360,000 actually frees up 270,000 to remain in the general fund. Currently, the CityLink budget, I have a slide on this later, is around 600,000 a year, so the 90,000 does not cover it. Going from 0.25% to 1% does not quadruple the CityLink budget. It just actually lowers the impact that the general fund has to pay for this. So, if approved, the CityLink contribution would free up 270,000 to general fund. We'd actually lose 90,000 to the school district by going from 90 to 180,000. We're supportive of that. We think they're doing great work with the money that we provide to them. The general fund change from 820 to 1.8 is around 960,000. So your net total, which we talked about last week, close to 1.2, actually by the math on this, 1.14 million net increase to the general fund. Here's the slide I'm talking about. This is the actual CityLink budget for 2019. It's been pretty consistent over the last several years. 639,000 is our budget. At the current rate, the difference between the 90,000 that we currently collect and the general fund has to support about 550,000 of that budget. If we approve the 5 plus 1% revenue, the general fund contribution would drop by the 270,000. The general fund contribution would only have to be about 279,000. So that's the breakdown. That's the piece I think a lot of people were hung up about. Just trying to confirm that we're not quadrupling the budget. In fact, next year's budget decreases. CityLink budget proposal that you guys will see in a couple weeks drops by about 65,000. So it's not a quadrupling of the CityLink budget. You saw this slide last week. A big driver for our decision for why to take this to the 5 plus 1 in July 1st of 2020. We are no longer going to be collecting sales tax on internet service. That's mandated by the federal government. The city's impact, where our finance department is estimating $1.4 million loss to the general fund because of that. And like you saw from that slide before, if we go to the 5 plus 1, we are expecting to increase by about 1.2 million, with the net loss of about 200,000 to the general fund. So softening the impact of the loss of the internet sales tax. Here's another new slide. This is the last slide I have for you before questions. These are 5 actual bills. Councilor Staley did a great job of bringing this point up last week. We've broken down these 5 bills. You can see customer A has internet only. So the current sales tax on this exact bill is $4.87. After the July 1st tax, the net to the customer, that customer will realize that $4.87 gain to their bill, or it'll be a lesser bill than what they're used to. Customer B, C, D, E, you can see all these scenarios. Customer B has a $60 internet bill and a $110 cable bill. So their current taxes are about $14 a month. After the proposed changes, the internet, or the sales tax piece, which would only apply to the cable, would drop to 7, and the franchise fee would increase from 3 to 7. So that customer experiences about a 9-cent hardship from what they're currently experiencing if both get proposed. And that's really one of the higher cable packages that we saw and one of the lower internet. So I think that person would be a good example of the maximum extreme. Customer C is actually Councilor Neitzert's official actual bill. He's got a $70 internet package and a $20 cable package with about $15 worth of extra fees. Currently, he's paying about $7 in sales tax and franchise fees based on this proposal. After July 1st, he's going to be experiencing about a $3.32 decrease to his bill. And you can just kind of see some of the others. These are actual bills. I think it really matters, what people's opinion is of their fees, and I think Midco is aware of that. I think they've been really appreciative of the runway that we've given them to get that messaging out. And these are just 5 examples, but we tried to pick and choose lots of variables on cable packages. So with that, the administration is hoping that you support a 5+1 setting of the franchise fee.
Thank you, Director. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak to this item?
My name is John Cunningham, 4904 Oxbow, Sioux Falls. I happen to be the cable television coordinator for the city of Omaha back in the 1980s when Senate Bill 66 that deregulated cable television and imposed a 5% limit. Up until that time, some cable franchise fees were as high as 10%, and the Congress put a limit of 5% on it. I frankly don't know who negotiated the 2.5% for the city of Sioux Falls, but that is the rent for the use of the streets and alleys and other rights of way for the city, an extremely valuable asset for that company. And whoever negotiated only 2.5% for the city at that time really didn't do the city any, was not looking out for the city's best interests, I'll say. So it seems like a reasonable action on as far as I can tell. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the last time that you met.
Could you state your name again, please, sir?
It's Dwayne Skipper.
Thank you.
A council member suggested that this is somewhat similar to the state of South Dakota increasing 0.5% sales tax. And there was a promise to refund part of that money to the citizens. Well, what happened is that the $20 million or so that was supposed to come back to the citizens was swooped up by the Sioux Falls School District for part of it. And then, as far as I know, the agricultural people didn't get their refund because the money went into a huge building up at South Dakota State University. So I kind of look at this situation as a tax that is going away, mandated by the federal government. One of the rare times that a tax disappears. And now the city recognizes that their revenue is going to fall short by $1 million or so. And they look at this and say, well, here's our opportunity to swoop in and gain that revenue from the average citizen. I don't think this is necessarily right. We're talking about 1/5 of 1% of the annual budget of the city. Now, in my way of looking at things. I think the city could get by without this 1 million or whatever net revenue it comes out to be. So I think you should look at this hard and fast as just another tax refund that citizens were potentially going to get, and now it's offset by another tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Deanne Conrad, representing the Sioux Falls School District and the district's cable access channel, K-Learn TV. I just thought I'd provide a little bit of history about the district's involvement in television programming in the city and where we're coming from on this. The Sioux Falls School District has had television broadcasts since the mid-60s when Washington High School implemented closed-circuit television. In 1965, when Lincoln High School opened, a television production studio was included in the vocational wing at that time. It stayed there until 2010 and was known at that time as OWL TV, which stood for O'Gorman, Washington, and Lincoln. In 2006, we underwent a name change and went with K-Learn TV, your Sioux Falls classroom connection, to better reflect the district's commitment to providing high-quality educational programming. Since 2010, K-Learn Studio has been located at the Career and Technical Education Academy, and it is accessible to students from surrounding school districts who participate in classes there in anything from AV and media production to culinary arts, health careers, carpentry, welding, automotive, and a variety of other subject areas. We do provide unique local programming not available on any other channel in the city, including live broadcasts of school board meetings, issues-based discussions, parenting tips, fine arts performances, updates on school construction projects, which we're grateful we have 2 new ones on the docket, sporting events, fine arts, and student-produced work. We run 24/7, as does CityLink. The information we've been able to get from Midco tells us we have about 5,500 unique household visitors who watch us monthly, with viewers watching for an average of 27 minutes. I always tell people, I know it's not a destination station. People aren't saying, oh my gosh, it's 7 o'clock, I've got to watch K-Learn TV. However, if they are flipping through the channels, as so many of us do, and find something of interest and can better understand how things are operating in their classrooms today, that's a great service to our community. Over the years, we've been lucky to jointly produce programming with CityLink on diversity issues, distracted driving, and other initiatives such as offerings at the city libraries as well as our public libraries as well. We also serve as on the ready if there were a large-scale disaster in our community, then we would turn that programming immediately over to the city, the county, whomever is in charge of that recovery effort, and allow them to use that facility exclusively. We're certainly proud to offer those services to our community. Prior to 10 years ago, when the first cable franchise agreement was set, our equipment costs would come from capital outlay in the district. And as often does, television equipment, if you will, fell short of being called a necessity. And so a lot of our equipment, and Councilor Kiley, you'll remember this, was really dated back to the 1970s when it was new over at Lincoln High School. And much of our equipment was very old. We could not find replacement parts for it. So the franchise fee, when we were able to participate in that, what a gift that was so that we could bring our equipment into modern day. 85% of the franchise fee that we receive goes for equipment, and the 15% is used for operational expenses. So our general fund, the school district general fund, takes care of our employees who run that generally, but occasionally we have teachers who are working nights or weekends, or for example, we had 4 people live streaming our graduation ceremony, very important part for family members who can't attend, and yet we have incurred overtime and allow then to be paid out of the cable franchise fees. So I just wanted to provide you with a little background as to how we're using these funds. We look forward to doing a very big project, what we consider a big project, that will upgrade our live streaming capabilities so that more people will have access to events that are happening in our schools. Thank you.
Let's try that with the mic on. Council, if you have any questions for staff.
I do.
Councilor Erickson.
Thank you. Deanna, if I could have you come up, and I kind of know the answer to this, but I want to hear you talk about it a little bit just for the benefit of the public. With the franchise fee, well, yes, it's being billed in Sioux Falls, we have many more school districts than just Sioux Falls. So talk a little bit about how maybe somebody who lives in the Sioux Falls city limits of Sioux Falls, but they go to Harrisburg or Hartford or T. How does that impact and what benefit do they see from it? Because they're paying for it.
Certainly. Thank you for that question. Yes, the participation comes in the line of where our students participate out at the Career and Technical Education Academy. We have partnerships with, I believe, at this point, it's 9 area school districts who send students to the Career and Technical Education Academy for participation in those programs that cost a large amount of money. Not everybody can have a full-scale automotive repainting bay where you can drive cars in and students can learn how to repaint. Not every school district can afford to build a television station from the ground up. And so those students are accessing those classes out there and accessing the experiences. They're also participating in our live streaming events and our video operations so that they get that hands-on experience that can be taken directly into the workforce. So it's really a great collaboration where students from, if I tried to name them all, I'm certain I'd forget some of them, but all of the school districts that touch Sioux Falls city limits, and then also Sioux Falls Christian and O'Gorman as well.
Any other councilors with questions? Okay, if not, we would look for a motion to approve the item.
Move to approve.
Second? I'm sorry, I was asking for a second. I wasn't seconding.
Second, Sale.
Okay. It's a motion to approve by Kylie, seconded by Sale. Councilor Neitzer.
I'd like to make a motion to amend by replacing Resolution 0043 with the amended Resolution Res 0043A.
Second, Brecky.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend by Neitzer, seconded by Brecky. Any discussion on that? Councilor Neitzer.
Thank you. Have Jim bring up. This is the dirty copy of the amendment. I'm just going to talk through it. So really, going through a couple things real quick. The purpose of a franchise fee, traditionally, at least in Sioux Falls, has been rental fee to use a public rights-of-way, and really to provide dedicated funding for the PEG channels of public, educational, and governmental, which we've learned about CityLink, and then through the pass-through to K-Learn. Looking at the franchise fee history is interesting. The City Commission in '94 awarded a franchise, but they reduced the proposed 5% franchise fee to 3% at the second reading on a 4-to-1 vote. And that included, I believe it was Mayor White at the time that voted for that. They imposed a 3% franchise fee on cable TV gross revenue. At the time, the definition of gross revenue was only basic cable service and equipment. I'm not sure how much digital and expanded was out there. It was a 10-year term with 5-year extension. They ran the whole term. In 2009, the City Council awarded a franchise again, and they imposed a 2.5% franchise fee. Now, you're going to notice it actually dropped, and we'll get to that. They added dedicated funding for the PEG channels for the first time to CityLink and to K-Learn. At the time of 1994, they were certainly in their infancy, and in 2009, they were starting to get moving, and it was determined that it was an important thing that they wanted to provide dedicated funding. Now, there was a discussion about why they did the 2.5%. They intentionally reduced it from 3.0 to 2.5% because there was more cable TV services. The definition of gross revenue changes. It included digital and expanded. And so it meant that the pool of revenue that they were going to be able to impose a fee on was larger. So they were able to capture a little bit more revenue with even less of a franchise fee. And so they knocked it down. And they actually had a little bit of a discussion about whether they should knock it down further. There's a few people that obviously didn't want a franchise fee. But in any event, the fee imposed versus the federal limits historically. Twice when given the opportunity, the council and commission have declined to take the federal maximum. When given the opportunity to maintain or raise it in 2009, the council chose not to, and I want you to go back to 2009. We had the crash in 2008. It obviously would have been a very volatile time. I'm guessing sales tax was not looking real good, and they still didn't raise it. They could have. The council's declined the opportunity to impose the dedicated 1% capital grant as well. So my proposal is to do a modest increase, a total franchise fee of 3%, increase the general amount, or take that back, 2% for unrestricted use, so the general sales tax amount doesn't change. It gets deposited into the general fund. It's a modest increase from the 2.5% total that we have. We increase the K-Learn funding from 0.25 to 0.50%. The school district has made a very compelling case about increasing their funding. We bump up CityLinks to match it. And it should be noted that, as Director Reisdorfer pointed out, this is not doubling the CityLink budget. This would not even be the total CityLink budget. That would still be supported from the general fund. Would not be proposing to take the capital grant, so the +1 goes away. And so what we end up with is, my proposal is an increase of 0.5% from the current 2.5%. And we talked about the 0.25% increase on both. So the intent of this, first of all, honoring the precedent of the former commission and council, the principle being just because we can take more money doesn't mean we should. We should resist the temptation to take the maximum allowed. Minimizing impact to the customer. We all know this. Every dollar is passed on to the citizen. It's not coming from Midco, so we're raising the fee on them. And really, as I looked at it, and this is really the determinative question for me, is do we need to take the 5 plus 1%? And to me, we don't. With a $64 million general fund, a $60 million property tax, it's a very, very, it's $1 million. I mean, that means something. It's about 1.4 we would lose. But just a few years ago, we had a downturn under the former mayor of sales tax. We budgeted through it. We can make this adjustment. And in this particular case, we have the luxury of we know it's coming. Usually you don't know it's coming. We don't know when things are going to go down. So we know a year in advance that we're going to be impacted. So finance can start planning now for the first half, for that half year, the last half of the year of 2020, and then plan for 2021. We can make it through this. This is not a calamity. So another thing I was thinking about is the coincidental timing. So it really turns out to me that it's really a coincidence that we need to renew the franchise when the sunset of the sales tax on internet services is going away soon. But what if the franchise is expiring 5 years from now? What would we have done then? We would have had to adjust for it. We wouldn't have had a choice. Unless we were willing to do something like, I don't know, double the fees on building permits to get the revenue back. I mean, we would have had to have looked at something else. And again, sales tax can be volatile. We don't know which direction it's heading. We might get 1% growth more than what we plan on next year, and then it's a wash. We plan and adjust all the time. I'm confident finance can do that. And again, so if we didn't have this to lean on, then what would we do? I think it's a convenient thing that it happens to be expiring at the same time that we're doing the franchise, and that's the only reason really that we're talking about raising it. So the amendment impact, it's going to be a very small increase on customers. The 6.5% tax on internet portion goes away in 2020, which means that customers, which is the citizens of our city, for once actually get a break, which doesn't happen very often. The net impact is virtually all customers will see their bill go down because most have an internet package of some sort. Midco Internet 50, if you have that, your sales tax savings would be 3.25. The franchise fee on the TV portion would increase modestly, even if you had the Ultimate Theater Suite, which is one of their, if not their biggest package, is $132.95. The fee would only go up 67 cents. So only a customer with no internet would see an increase, and that would be very small, and it doesn't sound like a whole lot have no internet. So this is just a chart that just kind of, I'm not going to go through all this. I think maybe the middle piece is maybe the more interesting part, the dollar impact. So we took the last 5 years of gross revenues, averaged it out, and looking at the current rate, the city proposal, and my amendment. And if you look at my amendment, we're generating a little bit more revenue, whereas with the city piece, we're going from 1.2 million in revenue to 2.9 million in revenue, which is a very, very large increase. So in summary, the intent seems to have been that we're charging people for the fee to use our right-of-way. I don't know that the fee to use our right-of-way has doubled. We're not taking the federally mandated maximum. We haven't. We want to dedicate some PEG funding. We're doing that here. Really, the principle is we raise fees, taxes, rates only when needed and only as much as necessary and no more. If you make the case to me, for example, with wastewater, I don't like raising fees, but it was clear it had to be done, and it would be irresponsible to put that onto a future council. This particular case, I know we can make it. We can fund through this. We have plenty of time. We have the luxury of advance notice. And I would also point out that I think the more we collect in franchise fees, the more you could argue that we're actually exposing ourselves to the risk of cord cutting. The more that we take in franchise fees, if people really do start cutting the cord, which I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen in the future, we're even more exposed because now we're taking in a few more $1 million than we were before. This minimizes it. So I would ask for your support. I think it's a reasonable compromise. I totally acknowledge the fact that this will not replace the lost sales tax revenue. I know that going in, but I just don't think that we should put it on the, just because it's convenient, we should put it on the backs of the cable subscribers to make up a loss that we can make up. Private citizens have to deal with changing financial circumstances all the time, and they make it through it. We can do it too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further discussion? Councilor Staley?
Well, I greatly appreciate Councilor Neitzert's in-depth historical information and his mathematical equations about how this will impact the rates. I agree that we shouldn't be raising fees. And telling the citizens in any circumstance that we're giving you a tax break is great news. Telling the citizens we're going to use what we're already taking in more effectively is fabulous news. I actually have an amendment. If his passes, I've got one to leave it as it is. So I see no reason why we need to raise anything. And especially because this situation with VAST and Midco is the only way people can watch our meetings on TV. This is the only avenue that they have. So why would we want to raise the price on that at all? And Mr. Cunningham, I really appreciate your public input, but you made the comment that when they were raising it, or they were looking out for the city's best interest. And I would say we need to be looking out for the customer's best interest, because anything we do to raise the rates on this or the fees is going to be passed right on to the citizens. So it's, to me, I think it just makes sense that we keep it as it is and celebrate that the sales tax aspect is going to be removed.
Thank you, Councilor. Anybody else? Councilor Kiley?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I too appreciated Mr. Cunningham's comments, and to reiterate some of what he had stated, extremely good deal for the cable company. The right-of-way is extremely valuable piece of property to the cable company, which is public right-of-way. So if we want to talk about citizens, the citizens are investing in that public right-of-way, and why should we not be able to extract from the users of that property? I think, you know, one of the things here, the amount of money that's going to be lost, if we left it as is, or even if we went with Councilor Neitzert's proposal, it's going to come out of the general fund then to support. It's going to come from somewhere. Other programs are going to hurt as a result. The last sheet that the director had put up on the screen, the customer impact scenarios, in all of those except for one, the trio bundle, which Councilor Kiley has, that's a 9-cent cost to anyone who has the trio bundle. Everything else is dropping, although the customer D, it's a very minor drop of 27 cents a month, but it's not increasing the rates on the majority of the cable customers. And I think things have changed too since previous counselors, and we need to take a look at the changes here today. Cable use is even though we've increased in population, it's basically subscribers have stagnated, or it's even been dropping in recent years. And I do agree with Councilor Neitzert that we need to be cognizant of that, because eventually the funds that we're getting now are going to go away even if we did do nothing, or even if we increase it. But again, the internet, the tax on the internet is going to go away. And the gentleman from Midco last week, when I asked him the question, what percentage of customers are cable only versus cable and internet? And he said very, very few cable only. The majority of them are carrying both services. So that internet service is going to help to offset an increase in the cable side. And that loss from the general fund is a concern to this counselor. And so I will be supporting what has been proposed. And I'd also want to point out that cable is not the only way to watch our meetings. You can stream, and the vast majority of millennials today don't even have TVs. So they're not relying on cable. Another reason why we got to be looking out for declining revenues in the future. So I will be supporting the original version of this ordinance.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sale?
Thank you, Councilor Sobert. I have a couple issues that have come through my mind since I saw the original proposal by Councilor Neitzert. And first off, there's no path to recoup the $1.4 million that we're going to lose in June of next year. I don't see any, to say we can budget through it, yeah, we can. We've done things like that before. But I think we have a responsibility to all the citizens of Sioux Falls. If we are going to lose $1.4 million, is that 10 police officers that we don't have? How many miles of streets will we not be able to fix for those people that don't have cable? I think we have a responsibility to all the citizens. And yes, it's a grand coincidence that these two things come together. One can offset the other. I believe that coincidences are there for a reason. I don't always understand them, but I think this is a way to do that. And though I am all for keeping our fees low and our taxes low, I think we have a responsibility to all the citizens to keep our services to the level we have today, and maybe to raise our services. Let's fix our streets. Let's make our streets safer. We can't do that without revenue. So I cannot support the amendment. I will support the original proposal as it's made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Staley?
The problem with putting our weight on this particular source of income is that it's depending on the Midco users. So if Councilor Sales' scenario plays out, we're going to take the revenue, we're going to hire some new police officers, we're going to maybe take a little extra second penny debt out, or however, we're going to do something for our streets. And then if people start pulling the plug on Midco, which I have to say to Midco, I feel sorry for them because they've taken a bad rap in the last few weeks here. But people pulled the plug on Midco, and then we've lost that revenue. And yet we've extended ourselves into having to have that revenue. So it's a little bit of a tenacious or a little shaky form of revenue, in my opinion. And also, there are people, Counselor Sale, or was it Counselor Kiley? There are still people out there who like to watch things on TV. They're maybe not attuned to turning on their computers to watch a TV show. They don't know how to stream. So I hate to see, I'm just going to make a little editorializing here, but let us not just close the door on people who maybe are traditional, they maybe use their phone, but they're not into the app thing. They still want to be able to just do it the old-fashioned way, which is dial up on the telephone, call somebody, write it down. They know how to write. So anyway, that's, I want to make our streets safer. I want police officers, and I will be voting in the future on putting more revenue into those things, but it doesn't happen to be this kind of revenue.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Counselor Erickson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thought I would chime in a little bit. I know I was gone last week, but have caught up. I struggle on both sides of this. I think that going straight to the top is a mistake. Unfortunately, I would have liked to see an incremental step approach. Oftentimes we've done that with other fees throughout. I believe it's the parking system. We did that where there was a slow incremental approach versus just going straight to the top. I understand it will even out with the loss of the revenue from the internet side. But my concern is technology is changing, and so we can't just increase the fees and expect that to just even out. So anytime technology changes, we're just going to up the fee and hope that it works out for the best. You know, I use video stores and landlines as an example. They're almost obsolete because of technology's changing. And so while many businesses are trying to catch up and make sure that they stay on the cutting edge, we're all not immune to that. And so for me personally, just going straight to the top, I have some great angst with that, but I'm wading through. So I just wanted to share a few opinions on that. And I do not think that Midco has gotten a bad rap with this. I think that you are one of the users, but I do not feel that in any way, shape, or form this is anything to do with Midco. This is about the franchise fee as a whole and the good things that come out of this for the school district as well as the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, why don't we call for a roll call vote on the motion to amend, please?
Councilmember Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kiley,
No.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
No.
That passes 5-2.
Okay, Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilor
I'd like to
Staley.
make a motion to amend Counselor Nitzer's motion to amend it by reducing the franchise fee to 2.5% in the first paragraph that follows. Be it resolved by the City of Sioux Falls that each grantee of a cable franchise agreement or open video system agreement subject to the cable services regulatory ordinance shall pay to the city annually the sum of 2.5% of its annual gross revenue as a franchise fee. So I'm taking his 3% and putting it back to the 2.5%.
So it's a motion to amend to 2.5% in the amendment to 2.5%.
Yes.
It fell for a lack of second. Okay. So now we are down to a roll call on the vote of the motion to approve as amended.
Can I ask a question
Yes.
before we go? For our city attorney, can you talk about the process as far as what happens if this passes, the agreement, and what this means if we need to delay it? Just give us a maybe a play-by-play, or Karen, I'm sorry. I just want to know what happens next if this does pass and the steps that we need to take.
Good question. Karen Leonard, Deputy City Attorney. I've been handling the cable franchise matters for the city. Should the City Council set the policy on franchise fee lower than the 5+1 that's currently out there, then we would ask you on the next agenda item, when approving the cable franchise for Midco, that you would make a motion to withdraw that item from your agenda so that we can match your policy and go back as the administration and negotiate that with Midco to put your policy wishes into their agreement. Yes. And just one other procedural matter, I think we still need a second on Councilor Staley's motion, or did we have a second?
I believe, did it fail for a lack of a second?
I tried and it died.
I didn't see that.
It's all right. Okay. So we are down to the roll call vote on the motion to approve as amended.
Councilmember Staley,
Yes.
Brecky,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Kylie,
Yes.
Nitzert,
Yes.
Selberg,
Yes.
Sale.
No.
That has passed 6-1. Next item, please.
Item 15, second reading, an ordinance approving the cable system franchise renewal agreement between Mid-Continent Communications and the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, along with authorizing the mayor to sign the same.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to withdraw item 15, please.
Second, Nitzert.
Motion to withdraw item 15 by Councilor Erickson, seconded by Councilor Nitzert. Any comments needed?
Could I just,
Go ahead.
are we going to take any input on this?
I don't know that, we can open it up to,
Is there any,
as a comment. Okay. Any other comments?
I just had a comment. Is the Midco representative here? Would you come up, please?
Hello again.
Hello again.
General Counsel Midco.
Just, we've been contacted by the KCPO, I believe, am I saying that right? Chuck Poppins channel. So I just wanted to say again, they're again asking that Mid-Continent would take them back on again. So, and I know last time I was here, brought it up, you or one of the people said you'd only been contacted by one person. Was that you? Okay, so I've actually been contacted by more than one person.
The carriage of any program has nothing to do with the franchise renewal, and so one.
No,
has
but but with the contract, and I don't know. Maybe our attorney can say. I mean, I don't know how this. If this, I've been contacted by people who want that to be included. So
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I do agree with the gentleman at the podium that Councilor Staley's has wandered off the issue on hand and is not appropriate at this time.
And I would like a ruling of the city attorney.
Well, it's per the city's charter, it's the administration's role to negotiate contracts. And so for this circumstance, if it doesn't apply to Midco, it's irrelevant to this agenda item. But this also isn't a circumstance where we negotiate those types of contracts from the dais at a city council meeting. So,
okay.
So just so that the citizens understand that we are not allowed to bring that in, okay? Just for the record, because that we cannot even request that be included, right?
Well,
Just make a ruling on that so that they understand. I tried.
well, okay, I mean, I stated what I did. I'm not sure what you mean by bring it in, but well, Karen has a comment.
We have brought down our outside counsel, Mike Bradley, and I think he can explain it under the FCC guidelines, what a city can regulate and cannot regulate. So I would like to introduce Mike Bradley from Bradley Law Firm to answer your question, Counselor.
Welcome.
Well,
Thank you, counselors, and good evening. My name is Mike Bradley from Bradley Law. I'm outside counsel for the city of Sioux Falls. And I did become aware of this issue. And I just wanted to let you all know that under the Federal Cable Act and FCC regulations, cities across the country are restricted on what they can require for programming. And they're limited to requiring broad categories of programming. So that would be something like the cable operator must provide sports channels or news channels, etc. And that's the extent of our authority under federal law. And the city, in the city's cable ordinance, has those broad categories of programming that Midco is required to follow. We are not allowed to request or require any specific channel. So if we wanted to, for example, require Fox News channel to be on the cable system, we couldn't specify that specific channel. We could require, 24/7 news channels, something like that, but not a specific channel. I had a situation like this come up fairly recently where the cable operator was removing TBS, or the Turner Classic Movie channels from, from one tier to another tier. And anyway, as we looked at that, it became very clear that the franchising authority, in this case the city, would not be able to make that requirement. Okay.
Thank you.
We can certainly encourage. There's nothing wrong with encouraging, but we can't require.
So I can encourage.
Sure, you can tell Midco that your preference would be that they carry it, but they don't have to carry it.
No,
and we cannot require it.
I get it. And I just want to say I'm so appreciative, despite Councilor Kiley's objection, that we can at least clarify this information for our citizens. Because when they're calling us and emailing us and asking us, we have a right to vet that out in public. So thank you for your information. Thank you for our attorney for allowing that to be answered and addressed.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thank you, appreciate it. Any other further discussion? Okay, we will ask for a roll call vote on the motion to withdraw, please.
Councilmember Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Neitzer?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. And next item, please, and I believe Councilor Starr can come back.
Item 16, a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Title VII Traffic Code and Chapter 95 Parks and Recreation to provide for the definition of e-bicycles and operation of certain e-bicycles in the same manner as bicycles.
Welcome.
Good evening, City Council. Kelby Maris with Parks and Recreation. An update on e-bike ordinance. I want to try to do the best I can not to confuse the issue. This last legislative session, the state approved e-bike language in state law. And in doing so, we feel it's best that we update our city ordinances so that they mirror the definitions in state law and at the same time maintain the intent of the city ordinances that were passed just a few months ago. So for some background, Class 1 e-bikes are currently allowed on our bike trail system, sidewalks, cycle tracks, and side paths. Class 2 and 3 e-bikes are not defined in city ordinance. Class 2 and 3 e-bikes are, however, allowed currently on city streets. State law changes become effective July 1st, and they define all 3 classes of e-bikes, where they're allowed, and provides for local control, meaning that we can be more restrictive, and that our Class 1 e-bikes that we allow on the bike trail, we can still do that. The ordinance language will continue to allow that Class 1 e-bikes on the bike trail and on sidewalks, and then the state law will govern where Class 2 and Class 3 e-bikes can be used in the city of Sioux Falls. So the biggest question now is, what does all that really mean? So where can you ride your e-bikes? The bike trail would be Class 1 only. sidewalks would be Class 1 only. On the street, on bike lanes, side paths, and on cycle tracks, all classes of e-bikes would now be allowed. And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Welcome.
I'm David Zokaitis, and the question I have is, what in the world is a Class 1 e-bike? I mean, how fast does it go? So that's my question.
Any other comments? Okay, counselors, any questions for staff? Counselor Sale.
Kelby, just for my recollection, could you define Class 1, 2, and 3 for us, please?
Absolutely. My apologies for not doing that before. A Class 1 e-bike is a pedal assist e-bike the e-bike will assist the rider up to 20 miles an hour. At 20 miles an hour, the assist then cuts off, but the assist is only available on a Class 1 e-bike while the rider is pedaling. A Class 2 e-bike will assist a rider up to 20 miles an hour, but it is throttle assist, so the rider does not have to pedal. But again, at 20 miles an hour, that assist then cuts out. A Class 3 e-bike is a pedal assist e-bike, and the assist will assist the rider while pedaling up to 28 miles an hour. And at 28 miles an hour, that assist then kicks out.
Thank you.
Anybody else with questions? Can we have somebody set a motion to set a date for a second reading for Tuesday, June 18th for this item?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Councilor Sale. Any other discussion? If not, we will ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
And it has passed 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 17 is a first reading and ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 116, Pawnbrokers and Dealers in Precious Metals and Gems, to remove reference to gun dealers from separate consideration.
Welcome staff to speak on the item.
Thank you, Keith Allenstein, Assistant City Attorney. Give a little bit of history here. The City of Sioux Falls has been regulating pawnbrokers and junk dealers since probably about 1957. In 2011, we amended the ordinances to redefine secondhand goods dealers, added in gun dealers to the types of individuals that were going to be regulated. And the reason we added in gun dealers was to try to distinguish the type of gun dealer we were regulating, and that is a gun dealer who made purchases of firearms for resale. In other words, a specialized type of secondhand good dealer. The purpose of these amendments were to require the reporting of items that the police department saw as the types of items that are being stolen and tried to be transacted for a profit. About the same time, Leads Online, an online reporting agency, came about to the City of Sioux Falls, and we've been utilizing them since, which has greatly enhanced the police department's ability to recover stolen items, whether they're stolen here, whether they're stolen in other jurisdictions. As long as they subscribe to this service, we can help to try to recover those stolen items. Fast forward now to 2019, House Bill 1056 was proposed and passed, and what it did as it applies to cities was clarify, in the words of the proponents, what was already the law. It added that cities are not allowed to prohibit or impose any licensure requirement or fee on firearm possession, transportation, sale, transfer, ownership, and manufacture. It added the word storage, so we cannot license storage, and purchase. And I think the purchase part was what was really directed right at our ordinance, although I will share with you that Sioux Falls is not alone in requiring the reporting of firearms that are bought by pawn shops and secondhand goods dealers. It's widespread throughout the state. The other thing that the House Bill 1056 did was to provide a mechanism for the Attorney General's office to send a cease and desist letter if they feel that our ordinance is out of line with state statute. And if we ignore that, they can move for injunctive action. Lastly, it does provide that the section is not intended to apply to generally applicable zoning laws, building regulations, fire codes, as long as they're not used to try to circumvent the prohibitions. As a compromise, the Municipal League did agree to not oppose, and I think even support House Bill 1056 when the following was read into the record on the Senate floor. Local entities impacted by this bill have stopped fighting the changes because they've been assured multiple times by the proponents that there will be no change to how municipalities are able to trace and recover stolen items, including firearms, and that local law enforcement will still be able to enforce state and federal laws and enforce all measures that generally apply to all businesses. With that understanding, the bill can be seen as merely clarifying the current law. So, what this ordinance does is hold them to their word, okay? We have removed any reference specifically to gun dealers. It further defines the types of items that need to be reported by secondhand goods dealers by including the word serial numbered items, and further clarifies the type of secondhand goods dealer that we're talking about. We're not talking about a casual purchaser of a firearm or a bow and arrow or an instrument or a drill or anything else. This is people that are in the business of buying goods for resale to others. And that is all this applies to. And then it adds, of course, the word e-bicycles, tying back into now the fact that we have these e-bicycles out there. They would also be required to be reported. This is an attempt by this police department to try to still be able to track stolen firearms, to get those back to the people who they belong to, while still maintaining that we follow state law requirements for city ordinances. I want to also point out that on the agenda for next week is some more cleanup language under the actual licensing chapter, chapter 110. To remove the two words gun dealer out of that as well. That is the purpose of this ordinance and the corresponding ordinance that will be before you for first reading next week. I will stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak to this item? Councilors, any questions for staff? Councilor Staley.
Excuse me, I got a cough drop in my mouth, Keith. So what would be the pushback on this?
It's the statutes which are designed to have uniform firearms regulations throughout the state so that people aren't surprised when they go from one city to another city to another city that there's a different rule in every city that you go to. The pushback would be then that because in essence, if a person is a secondhand good dealer who happens to purchase firearms, they would still be required to report that. They would still be required to get a license as a secondhand good dealer. Our response to that is that this is not a firearm regulation, it's a secondhand good dealer regulation. It's a business regulation, not a firearm regulation.
But why would there be any resistance to having firearms or having some kind of a registry for that, or to keep track of firearms that have been stolen?
I don't know that there's a, well, there are state statutes. The reason for them, I'm not going to speculate. There are state statutes that cities can't keep gun registrations. Even when we have stolen firearms, once it's recovered and a certain amount of time has passed, we're to destroy those records. I think the feeling may be that, the government is keeping lists of who has firearms. This is not a list of who is buying firearms. We're trying to track who's selling them because the person may not have legitimately had them, and we're trying to get that back to the person who it belongs to. And we don't keep the list of the person who buys it. We're just trying to recover the items that are stolen. The ironic thing is that depending on how you read this, if someone were to steal a rifle with a scope on it, you could require them to report the scope and perhaps not require them to report the rifle itself. So I cannot guarantee the council that the AG's office, I've reached out to them. They said that they would visit it if they got a complaint, would not offer guidance. So I cannot guarantee you that what their position is on this ordinance.
Have you had a lot of input from the gun community?
There was a lot of, well, I don't know about a lot, but there was input when House Bill 1056 was being discussed. And not much since that passed.
Thank you, Keith.
Any other counselors have questions? Okay, if not, I'd ask if we can get a motion to set a date of second reading for Tuesday, June 18, 2019 for this item, please.
So moved, Brecky.
Second, Kylie?
Okay, motion to set a date by Brecky, seconded by Kylie. Any more discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
No.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
That has passed 7-1. Next item, please.
Item 18, deferred from the meeting of Tuesday, June 4th, 2019, a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls approving diagonal parking on Main Avenue.
Welcome, Kurt.
Good evening, Council. Kurt Peppel, Public Works Engineering. This angled parking request is on Main Avenue next to the Cascades project. Main Avenue shown in the black hatched area between West 2nd Street and West 3rd Street on the east side of the road. The request is being brought forth was on behalf of Lloyd Companies and the Cascades project to create angled parking. This consideration is part of the development agreement with Lloyd Companies. Just to revisit the map from last week, it shows the blue line is the area that is being considered tonight, and the yellow areas are diagonal parking already approved for downtown. That's just a snapshot of what the proposed angled parking would look like, with the north being to the left side of the screen. We had a very productive meeting last Friday with Councilmember Staley organizing that, discussed the proposal with the owner of the property and some tenants, and then Lloyd Companies was present as well. We addressed some concerns with some existing things that were going on right now with some parking. Drove through there earlier today. Heath and his team got some signs up for 2-hour parking, some unloading zones, and then also restricted a little bit of parking to help the vehicles turn in and out of the properties. So those were up as of this afternoon. From a street functionality standpoint, we don't really have any concerns, and engineering recommends approval. And I know there are some folks here that would be happy to answer any questions on it.
All right, thank you. Anybody from the public who'd like to speak on the item?
Hello.
Hello, my name's Duff Robinson. I own the property on the west side of Main Avenue here where we're talking about tonight. I've owned the property for over 40 years and lease it to 5 tenants. 4 of the tenants who I'm here to represent tonight would prefer that the Main Avenue remain parallel parking with a center turn lane. The 5th tenant is on the fence on that question right now, and she's going to speak later. About 5 years ago, the city installed angle parking from 1st to 2nd Street on Main Avenue, which is a block north of the block we're discussing tonight. It didn't work, and the angle parking was removed and parallel parking was restored. Now it's being proposed that angle parking be installed between 2nd and 3rd Street to increase the number of parking spots from 8 to 16. Again, I would recommend the council continue to provide parallel parking on this block also. One thing I noticed when looking at the plans is the bump out. On Phillips Avenue by Minerva's, I see tables on the sidewalk for people to eat. On North Main, we're not going to have a Minerva's on the west side of this property. But the strangest thing is the bump out in the middle of the block. Why? Is this to promote jaywalking? Rather than whether the council decides to go with parallel or angle parking, I would recommend that they remove the middle bump out from the plan. If you drive on Dakota Avenue from 14th Street to 11th Street, just outside here, and then compare it with driving on Phillips Avenue from 14th Street to 11th Street, you will see that Dakota is a much more pleasant drive for people in cars and trucks. It also has much better with the center turn lane for snow removal in the wintertime. The plows can move the snow to the center and then remove it. North Main is not Phillips Avenue. We don't have Minerva's with people wanting to eat outside on the sidewalk. And I'm told there are no retail or restaurants facing west out of the new building. This is a view looking south on Main Avenue. The proposed angle parking is only for the one block, similar to the construction fence on the west side of the new building. Again, I would recommend that the council votes to provide parallel parking on that block to match the rest of the street. Please keep Main Avenue as a pleasant street to drive on with parallel parking, a center turn lane that allows us to turn into our properties and includes the center lane for snow removal, and no jaywalker bump out in the middle of the block. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on the item?
Hello again, I'm Steve Hadorf. I was here last week. I made most of my points last week, but just a couple more things. Again, I've been in that building 31 years renting from Mr. Robinson, but the amount of traffic on that corner will only increase as time goes. As people are coming from the falls, they don't want to drive down Phillips Avenue because of the congestion, so they cut over on 2nd Street to Main and then want to go south. And so again, I mean, just the amount of traffic on that corner, we need a turning lane into our parking lot, and also for the public safety issues when the police or fire departments are going up and down that street. And what it really comes down to is the trade-off is 8 additional parking spots on that east side versus the turning lane for better traffic flow. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Luke Justin with Lloyd Companies. I just wanted to discuss a little bit our proposal for the diagonal parking. We based our decision kind of off of 2 main things. The first, the downtown 2025 plan, which makes a couple of points of increasing parking density along the street. That's one of the goals of the downtown 2025 plan, as well as promoting pedestrian safety and by providing for bump outs to make the crossing distance much shorter for pedestrians. The downtown 2025 plan also calls for streetscaping in bump outs as we have planned in front of the building. Another item that I wanted to discuss was the South Dakota Department of Transportation released a study last year called Safe Travel for Every Pedestrian, promoting the bump outs and that the bump outs would provide for calmer traffic, that it naturally slow down speeds because the narrower lane naturally made people want to drive slower. So that not only for making pedestrians safer, also provides for traffic safety. It provides for less traffic accidents and less severity of traffic accidents with the increased amount of traffic that's happening on Main Avenue. And that study also provided that there was very minimal, if any, impact to emergency vehicle traffic when bump outs and road diets occurred. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any input from the public?
So he just told me they were going to show this picture later on. But Teresa was the only one that went downtown for this fiasco of this parking here. We have a realtor broker. We have people that's for developers that want to improve downtown. You would think that there would be more people that went to this downtown and to hear all sides of the stuff. I know Teresa said she reached out to every council member for this. I know that a lot of people be also for the developers and for the rich people downtown and to compromise on parking and issues and this, that, the other. But when Teresa's the only one reaching out to downtown, because downtown's a big thing to some of you council members, I didn't see one council member with Teresa Staley. It's very a shame that when Teresa Staley or some other council members are trying to reach out to the citizens, nobody wants to come along with her. And like I said before, there's election time coming, and these people that are very outspoken is going to win by a landslide in this election coming up here shortly. Teresa is an advocate. She speaks for the people, for the middle class, the rich, and the poor. Not just one set of people here. And I think that people should have been downtown to listen to these people. I don't care if you got emails or you got telephone calls. Y'all should have been downtown hearing the developers and the rich people and the middle class and the poor people that were all together on these issues about this parking situation here. It shouldn't have been just one council member. When she emailed council, I don't know who said what, but when I see this picture, there was only one council member. Just like for other stuff that was events happening around town, there was only one council member that went to this. So I think coming as a whole together, that people needs to come together, especially downtown, when I don't want to hear about people says, oh, we need to develop, we need to do this and this and this and this in downtown, but we only have one council member that's willing to go downtown and put themselves in the middle of the fiasco. Nobody else wants to go and show up. I think it's kind of alarming. So if y'all went downtown to improve and hear these business owners of the middle class, the rich, and the poor, I think that people need to get down there with Teresa Staley and everybody else and look at these issues at hand and listen to these citizens when it comes up for these parking situations here. And that's all I got to say about it. Thanks.
Any other comments? Okay, council. Any questions for staff?
Move to approve Erickson.
Second, Staley.
Okay, move to approve Erickson, seconded by Councilor Staley. Councilor Staley, go ahead.
Well, I said this earlier today, but I'm going to say it again. The only reason we were able to meet with those people this week was because the council voted to defer this for a week. And so I'm so appreciative of that, because I did take that opportunity to go down there and meet with these people. And here's the deal. If we had voted last week, we wouldn't have seen any smiles on people's faces. So we did have a wonderful conversation, and it goes to show that there's something to be said for having a little compromise. And we stood out there, and the business owners had some things to say, and the city listened, and so did Lloyd Company. I thank you so much. So we came up with, Jim, you want to put the list of, this is what we talked about. And the city, Mark Cotter said, I talked with him afterwards. I said, this is what Heath approved, and Kurt, the wonderful employees who came down there. So this is what we've talked about, is Jean was a business owner. She said, I'd like to have a loading zone. And you know, you cannot underestimate the power of being there and looking at it. Looking at a map doesn't cut it for me. So being there and present, it's like I could see what they were talking about. But she wants a loading zone. So the city committed to saying, we're going to put a loading zone because they don't have alleys on this property. So we did. They said, we'll do that. Jean said, well, how about 2-hour parking? Because we're kind of limited here with in front of my business. The city said, yes, we're going to give you 2-hour parking. And then Mr. Limousine guy here, he said, you know, I said, and I know would you rather not have this at all, but it's happening. So it's like, let's make the best of it. And he said, a little space by the driveway is going to help him get out of there. So the city said, yes, we'll leave that space open for you by the driveway. Came up, Jean says, hey, to Lloyd Company, your contractors have been parking in front of my building for, what, 2 years, Jean? A year and she's tried calling, and Jake's there, and he's like, from Lloyd Company, he says, okay, we're going to take care of that. We hear ya. No more parking over there in front of your business. Then they're saying, well, we got this speed thing going on, and as we're standing there, we're seeing people zooming through 40 miles an hour, and it's supposed to be 20. So I said, hey, Heath, how about some of those solar speed signs I've been talking about? And so he said, yeah, we can do that, like they have on 8th and Railroad. So they're going to put those up, help calm the traffic. And then they said, well, how about some crosswalks? Could we paint those on? Oh, the city said, yeah, we can give you some crosswalks. And the last thing that we talked about was the area to the north of that by the bakery where they had tried the diagonal parking and it didn't work. And they went back to parallel parking. And I said to Lloyd Company, because this is a new thing we're trying out, I said, would you be flexible that if this doesn't work, that you would go back to the parallel option? And they said yes. And then they said, we will have these bump outs. And then I said, well, we'll get the old wrecking ball out and break those apart if need be. So anyway, this is all, of course, non-binding, but very accountable because KSFY was there recording it. So it was really a fabulous example of what happens when we reach out to citizens, go the extra mile, listen to all sides, and then come together with some kind of a compromise. So I'm just really appreciative it worked out. And I'm going to be able to vote for this, even though I know it's not exactly what you wanted, but it's better than if we had voted a week ago. Because once we vote, your ability to negotiate is down the toilet.
Any other counselors? Councilor Neitzer.
I would just say in terms of the diagonal parking and the bump outs, it's really a matter of perspective. This is something that if you want your downtown to be vibrant, you need to do traffic calming. There's a reason why Main Avenue is flourishing. There's a reason why Phillips Avenue is flourishing. Downtown, you need to put pedestrians first. You don't want cars to zoom through. This is what you do if you want to incentivize and get economic development going. And you put the pedestrians first. You don't want cars zooming through. You want it to be difficult to move through downtown. It's not supposed to be a raceway. So this, I think, is going to be a good thing, and I'd like to see it continue. And Dakota Avenue was brought up. I'd love to see a road diet all along Dakota. Shouldn't be 3 lanes going straight through. So,
thank you. Any other counselors? So we have a motion and a second. Ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale.
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 20, a resolution declaring it necessary to levy and levying a frontage assessment against the lots, tracts, and parcels of land fronting and abutting upon 21st Street from Phillips Avenue to 7th Avenue in the city of Sioux Falls for the purpose of maintaining, planting, and otherwise improving and caring for the center parkways and boulevard thereon.
Good evening, Council. Kelby Maris with Parks and Recreation. This levy assessment would impact 53 property owners that front or abut 21st Street from Phillips Avenue to 7th Avenue. It would be assessed 85 cents per front foot. This assessment has been in place since 1915, and the level of assessment has not changed since 1998. I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this item? Council, do you have any questions?
Move to approve, Erickson.
Second, Brecky.
Motion to approve by Erickson, seconded by Brecky. Any further discussion? If no, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kylie?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes,
Sale.
Yes.
that has passed 8-0. Next item.
Item 21, a resolution authorizing an application for financial assistance, authorizing an execution and submittal of the applications, and designating an authorized representative to certify and sign payment requests.
Welcome, Director Cotter.
Good evening, City Council members. Let's talk wastewater. Tonight, this resolution is really, it's the first step that allows us to make application to the state of South Dakota that really sets up the funding with low interest loans that we've started to talk about in the early spring of 2018. Wastewater is important to each and every one of us, and we also have the shared importance to make sure we provide this to our community, look forward 20 years, make sure that we have the capacity to meet our own customers' needs and the customers that will come each year. We've just got a few slides just to frame up this item, and then we've got some of the larger numbers toward the end. Wastewater plant, it's always a good sign if people don't know where your wastewater plant is. Many people don't. It's in the extreme northeast corner. Our forefathers purchased the land and about 400 acres to have sufficient buffer and room for expansion, and even with the scale of the expansion that's required, no additional land in that area is needed. Just to frame up a picture of the current facility was built in the early 80s, very logically laid out on the side of a hill, greatly uses gravity to go through all the various treatment processes, and then we're going to take that same approach as we lay out the expansion. It has a current capacity of 21 million gallons per day. It has a peaking capacity of 35 million gallons per day. Got a number of improvements that have been laid out. These are still, I would say, in order of priority conceptual. Once we get the designer and the CMAR contractor both under contract, which will happen over the coming months, we'll take a fresh look at the current facilities as a team and then ultimately update the phasing plan accordingly. The blue boxes start to tell you where we'll start to look at first to take care of some of those immediate rehabilitation and expansion needs. Additional projects are laid out. So overall, as we began to talk about in early 2018, we've got a master plan investment needed at the wastewater plant of just under $160 million. We've laid out what we believe the financial needs will be to meet those respective projects over time. Our current plan with the DNR is to have terms on these loans of 20-year terms at 2.5%. And again, we'll be submitting the facility plan that also allows us to make application for the first loan, which we would be coming back to you with loan docs in the final quarter of 2019. That's what we have for you. We would ask for your support.
Thanks, Director. Anybody from the public who'd like to speak on this item?
Thank you.
Council, any questions? Can we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second, Brecky.
Motion to approve by Councilor Kiley, seconded by Councilor Brecky. Any more discussion or debate? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson?
Yes.
Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Next item, please.
Item 22 is a resolution of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement between the Wildland Fire Division of the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and the City of Sioux Falls for cooperative efforts in fire prevention and suppression efforts and non-fire assistance.
Welcome.
Good evening. Mark Lukovich, Division Chief Fire Rescue. This is another contract of previous contracts that we've had before in order to help out the state of South Dakota with any wildland fires throughout the state. The previous contract expired earlier this year, and this is just the new contract that the state has sent out to fire departments within the state.
To the point. There we go. Anybody from the public like to speak on this item? Seeing none, council, any questions?
Move to approve.
Second, Brecky.
To approve by Kiley, seconded by Councilor Brecky. Any further discussions? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Starr?
Yes.
Staley?
Yes.
Brecky?
Yes.
Erickson? Kiley?
Yes.
Nitzert?
Yes.
Selberg?
Yes.
Sale?
Yes.
That has passed 8-0. Is there any new business?
Move to adjourn, Star.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.